She really just wanted to be the Queen of Hearts. But as she arrived on Tuesday night, making her entrance in Midtown Manhattan, walking past that rental car backdrop, it was a lot more like the Queen of Hurts than Hearts. Now, as the world knows, Meghan Markle capped off winning a meaningless award with what we are hearing was a near-catastrophic 2-hour car chase through the streets of Manhattan. Oh yes, folks, that's right. According to their spokesperson, Meghan and Harry and her mother Doria were the subjects of a crazy hunt by the paparazzi. And some people are believing it. There are commentators online who are comparing Meghan and Harry's experience to Princess Diana's tragic final fate. But let's think about what New York City Mayor Eric Adams said, and the police department too. Maybe it didn't quite happen the way they have portrayed it. Recollections may vary, let's remember. Of course, their mouthpiece Scooby-Doo is whining that nobody from the palace has reached out yet. Wah, wah, wah. Well, there could be a very good reason for that. I also do wonder what Gloria Steinem, the 89-year-old feminist icon who chose to give Meghan that award as a woman of vision on Tuesday night, must be thinking about right now. After all, that story about the car chase pretty much stole all the thunder from her event. It wasn't quite the red carpet, though, that one may expect. It certainly wasn't the pomp and circumstance of, oh, I don't know, a coronation maybe. But Meghan seemed pretty proud to be there, like this were her crowning moment, wearing gold as if she were trying to symbolize a crown. Or maybe she was trying to look like one of those little Oscar statues, who knows? I guess if the only thing you care about in life is fame, it doesn't really matter, and that is Meghan. She is not really known for being subtle. She was going for the gold as Harry and Doria took their positions 3 steps behind her, as always. Now maybe Harry is a born prince, but let's not forget, Meghan has to be the real star. She has turned walking in front of her husband into a sport. And this image is essentially what set the tone for the evening. Fatuous, irrelevant, high on its own self-regard, and all sense of meaning and purpose absolutely lost. Gloria Steinem used to be the face of the women's rights movement, and she was reduced to absolutely nothing. It was a really strange night. Upon entering the Ziegfeld ballroom, guests were asked whether or not they were VIPs. It seems like even feminist movements do have their echelons. And if you pay $1,500 for an entry-level ticket, then you get a pretty uncomfortable seat with a front-row view of coat check. After 10 minutes, things changed, and so the nobodies were allowed up to the second floor. There were 2 open bars there serving some top-shelf liquor, and people were also pretty shocked at the post-pandemic dress code slovenliness. There was one disheveled guest who was wearing some sparkly Birkenstock sandals and a black stretchy mini dress under a pink puffer jacket. My goodness. So I guess this was the VIP section? Anyway, noticeably missing were all the stars. There was not really a feminist icon there. No Malala, no Jane Fonda, no Beyonce. Or maybe it's just that they didn't want to come because they worried they might overshadow Meghan. Only one feminist icon was allowed to enter through the rental car office after all. And then down in the ballroom, the plated salads on the banquet tables were ready and waiting. It didn't look very good, but anyway, it was food, I guess. It's interesting that there was nobody who even mentioned Meghan. Nobody was talking about how exciting it was to have her there. Nobody was talking about how excited they were to hear her speech. If anything, as the night went on and the event slipped an hour behind schedule, a sudden break announced so that people could finally enjoy dinner, the crowd didn't seem very happy. In fact, people were more excited to eat than anything else. That night really was everything that represents Meghan Markle, though. It was a manufactured buildup of anticipation and then an overly dramatic entrance that didn't give any other actual activist any time to shine. Meghan went on stage to the Alicia Keys She anthem Girl on Fire, and then there was basically nothing. Meghan was careful, as she always is, to make sure that her word salad contained no actual meaning, except of course when talking about her favorite topic ever, herself. So people observed Meghan's inability to read a room, as always. She thanked the other honorees without actually naming them. She said congratulations, and frankly, well deserved. It was smug, it was smarmy, it was 100% Meghan Markle, this glorified podcaster telling these real activists, no matter what you think of their politics, that they had actually earned their place on the same stage as the amazing Meghan Markle. Her use of frankly is so typical of her. It was supposed to emphasize that Meghan is this brave woman daring to speak the unspeakable. And then, of course, there was the humble brag. Meghan is pretty famous for that. She referred to her newfound Gloria as Glow. It reminded me of how inappropriate Meghan was when she met Princess Catherine and Prince William barefoot. And then she went on to demand that Catherine share her lip gloss with her. So Meghan can call feminist icon Gloria Steinem Glow, but Meghan has to be referred to as Duchess by everybody else. So Meghan continued talking about her fellow honorees, saying, "We all bear witness to you standing in elegance and the power of your strength." Okay, well, the crowd wasn't really sold. In fact, the crowd was just wondering when this whole mess was going to be over. After all, there were subways to catch and kids they needed to kiss goodnight. But they were stuck with Meghan Markle being vapid as always. And it's not like she even delivered anything fresh in that speech of hers. She just repeated the same old nonsense as always, the same stuff she told on her podcast. She told that story of poor little Meghan Markle returning home from school to her TV dinner and copies of Ms. Magazine all over the place thanks to her mother. Even though we already know her father was the one who really raised her. So Meghan went on to say, "Having these pages in our home signaled to me that there was so much more than the dolled up covers and those images that you would see on the grocery store covers. It signaled to me that substance matters." Okay, this is coming from the ex-mattress actress and former briefcase game show girl who used her looks to get ahead in life on the backs of men, who has posed for those exact same magazine covers that now she's talking bad about. So this warmed-over speech was filled with Meghan's greatest hits. Change is just one action away. You can be the visionary of your own life. Daily acts of service and kindness and advocacy and grace and in fairness, the imprints that were forged in my mind. I can now connect the dots in a much better way to understand how I became a young feminist and evolved into a grown activist. And this is a feminist who, just in case you forgot, has publicly trashed her famous sister-in-law, Waity Katie, to Oprah and an audience of millions of people. Catherine made me cry. The truth is, Meghan is claiming that she's this grown activist, but she hasn't done a thing. She talks a lot of talk, but she doesn't walk any sort of walk whatsoever. And boy, did she enjoy tooting her own horn. Her speech was just as insufferable as it was revealing. She also said, "Ms. was formative in my cocooning. It piqued my curiosity and it became the chrysalis for the woman that I would become and that I am today." Okay, the woman who vilified the very institution that was led by the late Queen Elizabeth in her final years. The woman who claimed that there was institutional racism in the royal family until her husband finally spoke out and announced that they never said that in the first place and that the royal family is not racist. This is a woman with no substance whatsoever and no real accomplishments as a feminist. She's a woman who is still trying everything she can to one-up the royal family, even from a ballroom that's next to a parking lot with no red carpet whatsoever. Meghan Markle is the personification of Ms. as an organization that has obviously lost sight of its real goals. In fact, most of the night was spent advocating not for women, but for trans rights and critical race theory. People heard abortion is racist, and of course there was a lot of talk about the white supremacist patriarchal system. So it looks like even this foundation that was set up for biological women out of a deep and enduring necessity has instead been subsumed by men who now identify as women. Pretty appropriate then that that night was overshadowed by a fake woman whose empty platitudes on stage failed to make headlines, whose spokesperson told an insane story of a high-stakes car chase that never happened. So we're supposed to pity Meghan because she's a victim, but also see how strong she is. We're supposed to admire her, but you are never allowed to laugh at her, and do not ever question whether or not she's telling the truth. Well, it looks like the Worldwide Privacy Tour Part 2 is in full swing.